Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so blessed and honored to have a fabulous guest with a fabulous couple of topics coming to you today. We've got Amy Whitson, Vice President, Strategic Development for Corporate Relocation International, who's going to be with us today. So excited about that. We've got a contest where we're giving away cash prizes from our sponsor, OnQ. So excited about that. We're going to talk about that contest they got going. But before we do, we're going to talk about this book right here. It is called Take Control of Your Job Search. It is by Lauren Herring, the CEO of Impact Group, friend of the show. She wrote this wonderful book that's going to help you find that job. But first, you got to get over 10 key emotions. So I encourage everybody to read it. If you need a job or if you know somebody that needs a job, go ahead and refer this book. We are also going to be discussing the book August 31st. So we are looking for people who want to discuss it here on Love and Relo Live. And as a bonus, if you sign up to do that, you get a free book. So reach out to myself, reach out to Janet Turner. Let us know if you want to participate in that. We will get you a free book. Time is running out, so act now on that. As well, I want to go ahead and talk about our sponsor, OnQ. This is a great service for relocation companies and for moving companies. OnQ is capping off their 2020 Mover Summer Games with a closing ceremony, and it's going to be NBA Hall of Famer, Dream Teamer, two-time Olympian Chris Mullen with Adam Lowy, founder of Move for Hunger. They're going to be judging the winners of the 2020 Mover Summer Games. So go ahead and register. The link is below, and we got a little tinyurl.com/watch OnQ where you can register for that event. Check out that, see who won a big prize on that. So that's going to be awesome. And without further ado, I'm going to bring out our guest today, Amy Whitson. Amy, how are you doing?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I am fantastic. It is Thursday, which means it's Friday Junior, which means we're one more step closer to the weekend when I get to spend time with my family over here. I ain't seen in like 2 weeks. So I'm super excited about that. Amy, what's going on in your world? Where are you right now?
Grapevine, Texas, baby.
DF Dub in the house.
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
I love it. I used to go to the Grapevine Mall when I was in college. I worked at the Budget Rent-A-Car call center in Carrollton. I get my little paycheck. I go to get me some iceberg jeans from the old off Fifth Avenue store. I thought I was big pimping in the house down in Texas, but no. Anyway, no, awesome. We got a lot of love for the DF Dub. That's where my mom lives in Plano, so that's really cool. Now, are you from Dallas originally?
Yeah, I grew up in the Keller area and never made it too far. I've traveled all over the world, but I don't think I could call anywhere home but Texas. You can take the girl out, but you can't take the Texas out of the girl.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely. I feel called myself to come back one day. So let's see who we got coming on, checking in with us right now. We've got Lynn Greenberg. Hi, Ben and Amy have been looking forward to this. Checking in from New York, MoveIt App. What's up, Lynn?
Hey, girl.
Lynn also, actually interesting, grew up in Mamaroneck, near where I grew up in White Plains. So this is just like a hometown little reunion for me. Jason Rollins, hi, Amy and Ben. Looking forward to another great show. Thank you, Jason. You are too kind. Miriam checking in from the Netherlands. Good evening, Cross-Munity.
Nice.
Cross-Munity, I like it. If you have the option between Cross-Munity and immunity, always take immunity, but you can always find us here at 4 o'clock Eastern. Victoria McCullough, hi, Ben and Amy, coming to you from the scorching DFW area. Yeah, Victoria knows about it. There you are. Good to see you, Victoria. We got to get in some really cool things today, y'all. So I want, check in, leave a like, leave a little heart there for Amy. We're going to be checking in on some really cool topics here. We're going to be talking about, different types of policies. We're going to be talking about renters. We're going to be talking about, how do we cater to families that are, have disabled people or elderly people in them? What kinds of policies might do that? How do we make room for disabled professionals, right? Amy's going to talk to us about all sorts of things like this. So very excited about this. Oh, let's see who else we got here. Casey Gale checking in from San Diego, PC Housing. What's up, Casey? Chris Lauterbach. Hi, Amy and Ben. Looking forward to today. Chris is also from the the DFW. You know Chris?
I do. They actually office very close to us.
Look at that. I tell you what, this is like the best free advertising in relocation, by the way. Just leaving a little comment here, getting your little shout out. Dan checking in from the D, as Ben calls it. Now, listen here, Dan. Here's the thing, okay? Dan's in Detroit, okay? Not to be confused with Dallas. Dallas is Big D, and Detroit is just
D.
the D.
Yeah, but Dan is my extreme counterpart. He's awesome. So we'll take a little D.
Oh, Dan, yeah, little D. Come on, little D. No, Dan's great. Detroit's great. It's all great. Simon Johns, hi, Ben and Amy from the UK, checking in. What's up, Simon? Gin and tonic time out in Great Britain. Andrew Bruzy, hello, both checking in from Bentonville. Look at that hotbed of commerce out there in Bentonville, Arkansas. Lynn Griffiths, hi, Ben and Amy. Katie Linehan checking in from Connecticut. Katie, did you move yet? Let me know. Kelly Guerin, hi, Ben and Amy. Hope you're both having a great day. It's going to be 115.
Wow. See, I thought it was bad here because it was going to be like 103. So you've made me feel better, Kelly.
115. She lives in Mars. Oh my gosh. This is Nash Vegas. Not. Oh, that's hilarious. Dora from the Bay. What's up? Jack Jampel. Hi, Ben and Amy. Good to see you, Jack. Jack, is that a topless photo on Facebook, Jack? Very, very risque, Jack. Very risque. Lena, hi, guys. Greetings from Stockholm. Strategic development sounds great. I think we could all use a little bit of strategic development, Amy.
Yes.
Maybe you could teach us how to get some strategic development here in COVID times.
One key way to do that is to make sure you ship whatever those customers need, and I know you're like the king of the shippers.
King of the shippers. That's an interesting title. Let's see if that fits on a business card. I might get that.
King of the shippers.
Aaron Flores, what's up, my man? And hello, my friend Amy.
Aaron.
Now, Aaron specializes in renters. Let's jump off there and talk a little bit about. Well, actually, okay. Now, before we get into Aaron, before we get into renters and all that good stuff, because I know you're going to talk about that. You posted something so outrageous on LinkedIn yesterday. Okay, I almost had to call the LinkedIn police. Okay, you posted the teaser of all teasers of all time. I was so impressed. I was like, wow, you need a reality show. She said, ask me about the time. So here I'm about to do it. Ask me about the time I shipped how many pounds of breast milk overseas?
Honestly, it's been 3 years. I don't remember, but I know it was hundreds of pounds.
Oh my gosh, hundreds of pounds of breast milk. The sheer effort involved in producing that is mind-boggling. So how did that happen, Amy?
Well, so we were moving. We had signed a new client, and I was helping sort of give them implement it and training the team. And so I had helped take a file. And as we were sort of walking through it, this lady's two big things were I have a pet and a newborn. Okay, totally get that. I'm a mom. Totally
was she feeding the pet breast milk? I mean, what do you need that much breast milk for?
I really firmly think she was running a business. I think, and there really are other moms that can't. And so I think maybe she was selling hers is all I could come up with. But she's really
breast milk exporter.
I think so.
Import-export business.
And we were, and I'm surprised it made it through customs. In all joking aside, but that was like a big deal for her. Like a wet nurse, yes.
Wetnurse.com. What was she doing? Exporting that much breast milk? Okay. Anyways,
I don't know, but it was
pretty
this
crazy.
file.
You're like, hey, I'll take a file, and then you get
I'm like, hey, you guys. I said I would help. I didn't say I wanted the one crazy customer we had.
And they're like, oh, Amy wants to help. Give her this one. Boom. Yeah. There you go.
So they hooked me up, and so this lady was a piece of work. And we obviously, I mean, all of you guys are in the relocation space. You know what it's like to go back to a client and have to get an exception. And this was, I mean, literally, I think they thought I was joking when I said, hey, we're going to need some extra funds for dry ice to ship all this breast milk. And I was just like, you can pump more when you land. And I mean, I really did try to talk her through it. I was like, I don't know if the company's going to approve this. But
I like how you're thinking like this hundreds of pounds is just for the amount of time she's in the air. Like just for the amount of times you're out of pocket, this will do you.
Yeah. So anyway, we talked through it and she wasn't going to go for it. So needless to say, I have shipped lots of things, but of all the files I've ever done, that was probably the most interesting.
Oh my Lord, that is something else. The things, that takes the cake. I mean, I've heard a lot of crazy stuff shipped. I'm in the moving business and we always kind of compare notes and stuff around the beers. Sure. And that one takes the cake. I'm going to have to remember that one. Wow, that is fantastic. So before you were shipping breast milk overseas, what were you doing? What were you doing? They were like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go be in Relo where I get to do something interesting. What were you doing beforehand, Amy?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I started off in college leasing apartments, and for 20 years was in the multifamily space, either managing assets or working for sort of vendors associated with the multifamily industry. And Derek Bird, who is my colleague and our senior vice president, known for years, and our paths had crossed when I worked at Court Furniture for a decade. And so I had kind of called and set up an appointment. I knew CRI had won a really large account that had a lot of renters, and that really hadn't been their strong suit in the past. And so I had gone to sell Derek some software thinking, okay, this will be an easy close. And so we know each other and I know they have a need. And I'm like, okay, so we're wrapping up the meeting and I'm thinking I'm about to sign the contract. And he goes, can you wait just 1 minute? I'm like, sure. So he goes and grabs Jeff Walker, who many of you probably know, who's been in our industry for 30 plus years. And Jeff comes in and I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, I didn't come here for a job interview. I came here to sell you some software. And they're like, well, we're not really interested in the software, but we think we might be interested in you. And, the rest is what I will say is my career history. And I will say that the sort of the pivot to leave multifamily real estate, which is sort of adjacent to the relocation space. It's been such a fun thing. And I feel like I've been working on a master's in relocation. And I'm very fortunate that I have been able to work with two people who have such incredible relocation backgrounds. I mean, I always tease that the two of them together, have 60 years of experience. So, what they bring to the table when I don't know they do. And it's been a really incredible experience.
So you mentioned that, and we've got 40 something people on LinkedIn right now. We got another almost a dozen people on Facebook. This is awesome. Go ahead and leave a like, leave a comment. We'd love to hear your questions as well for Amy. We're going to get into a myriad topics here. It's going to be a lot of fun. So go ahead and leave one. I want to get to those here. But Amy, you said, now you've been in Relo for a little bit now, and you're getting a master's in global mobility. What are some of the things that you've kind of noticed or observed early on as kind of an industry outsider, if you will, that's kind of stuck out to you, and maybe it might be opportunities even for industry to improve?
I think that's a fantastic question. And I think one of the things from the onset of kind of joining Derek with sort of this approach to renters and mobility, it doesn't seem to me that there's a duty of care for renters. It's sort of like, hey, we really can't monetize on you, so here's a lump sum and see ya. And coming from a world where that's what we did was cater to renters, and the multifamily industry is an incredible billion-dollar business. And I think that sometimes as an industry, we sort of miss the forest for the trees. And I think it does take several more renter files, obviously, to monetize. But I think that's one of the key things is finding and creating solutions for renters, because those renters are going to be the future home buyers. Those millennial renters today that are 35 years old are going to be running companies and are going to be that next executive move. So I think as an industry, it's number one, us looking at that. And then I think the other aspect that you touched on earlier for me is really not transacting, but treating each file with that duty of care and as a person. And I think those are the two things really from my background in a service-oriented way from the multifamily industry. It was always very grassroots, and whether you're managing assets or selling to the multifamily C-suite, it was very person to person. And I feel like sometimes in the relocation industry, it's just move the paper, move the file, and we're not asking the questions. Does this family, have an elderly family member? Do they have a special needs child? And I think those are some of the two key things for me is what does that duty of care look like and how do we do that better? And then how do we make money while we're doing it?
So you touched on a bunch of things there, and I want to just kind of pick them apart because I think they're each, topics that kind of deserve to stand on their own, and I want to take a deep dive into them. So the first thing you talked about was renters, right? And you got Aaron so excited because he's a renter person, right? And he's got all these thumbs ups going across that don't translate apparently in StreamYard. But basically, it's funny, right? As you say this, literally before this call, I got off the phone with a chief legal officer for a Fortune 500 company, and she's a renter. She's in a 1-bedroom apartment. She's got a mansion somewhere, but she's been living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and she's been kind of on assignment bouncing around with this company. And she's super important. She's an EVIP. I mean, that's why I was on the phone with her. I'm like, hey, I'll take a file, right? And they gave me the file, right?
And there's no breast milk.
Yeah, right? Well, I didn't ask her. I thought that was inappropriate, but it comes up, I'm gonna have to move it. I'll call you, But I think it's interesting because I think we just traditionally think of renters as, out of college or whatever, and not necessarily the most important file in the stack. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of them could be executives, could be very important, very influential, very strategic. Besides the fact, to your point, you know, down the road, I mean, they also have needs. So I guess my question is, with renters, what types of services do you see coming to bear for renters that maybe are kind of in their infancy or not even around yet in relocation?
No, I think that's a fantastic question. I think the first one is taking them seriously. They're still going to have to find a home. And a lot of them have a lease break. And a lot of times policies may or may not address that lease break. And so that's a big piece. And if I'm young, 2 months rent, and this is maybe my first real job outside of college, and I've been living in this apartment while finishing school, I may not have $2,000 to go break my lease. And if I get a lump sum, I may not get that until after I start with my first paycheck. So I think some of the things we as an industry can say is we're going to provide solutions for that, and that we're not just going to say good luck. And so we're building some technology to help. We're partnering with great real estate agents like our friend Aaron, in different markets to do some of those things. And then we've also linked up, because of my background, with some of the bigger property management firms across the US, so that maybe we already have a relationship where we can help you out of that lease, or maybe help you transfer to another apartment and not even have that cost. So I think there's a lot of things. I think the first one is the housing component, which we all know. And then I think the second one is, maybe your move solution is too expensive and it doesn't make sense for them, but maybe there's a containerized move. Maybe there's, a rental truck or some labor for that type of a move that may or may not make sense. And so I think they've still got to move their things. And I think we've got to source those solutions and figure out ways, to monetize on that. And then I think finally, the last piece is everybody has to get situated and settled. Are we helping them from a concierge standpoint? What are we doing to help them connect utilities, to find insurance? Are we helping them ship their auto? Did we help them with their pet? They still may want an area orientation. Are we asking those questions? Or are we just assuming because they're a renter, they don't need that?
Yeah. I think that's interesting. You talk about from a moving standpoint, we were having this conversation with Jack, and Jack Jampel, and he's got some thoughts on it too in the comments there. We'll take that comment. But yeah, from the moving industry has not done a good job with small shipments. And I worked for 2 container companies previous to this role. And even those companies didn't really fit the need, because even those containers were holding 4,000, 5,000 pounds of stuff. And these people might have 500 pounds, 600 pounds, depending on the situation they were coming out of. Sure. And they still might want the service instead of a do-it-yourself option. So where is that full service micro shipment solution? And I think, to your point, talking about real estate, and talking about Aaron, for instance, or talking about, these types of, moving companies, the supply chain is different. And I think that the RMCs have an opportunity to really go out and source some different types of solutions, because I think if we wait for our existing providers to come up with those solutions, we're going to be waiting an awful long time, because it just doesn't fit their business model. I mean, have you seen that, where you've had to go out and kind of reinvent the supply chain to some extent to care for these populations?
Well, interestingly enough, that was my initial task when I came on board. They had won this huge account, and it was all renters. And I think, being an outsider, that's really what helped me, because I have a much more diverse network of suppliers from my multifamily days, that I sort of said, hey, why don't you come? And it's so funny how we all stay in our own little buckets and our own little worlds. And I'm like, no, come over here. Let's work on this together. Let's work on that together. And so I think for me, that was really the fun of the first 2 or 3 years I was there, because this account, I mean, you're talking like 10,000 renter moves a year. So I had a lot of practice in sourcing what are those, best in class solutions that are still affordable and yet, can help us. Obviously you have to move a lot more renters to make the same as a homeowner. I mean, we all want that executive move, right?
Sure.
But I think again, as an industry, and as we look at the changes that are happening because of this pandemic, if we can't step up, to these companies and say, hey, we have solutions for all of the above, we're going to be left behind.
Well, you're right. I had a client a few years ago that was a CHRO, and she was a renter in Chicago, and she wanted a household goods move done. And we gave her an exclusive use of a truck and a transit time that was like a week long, and it cost her like $6,000 or something. And she was so ticked off at us that she pulled the whole business, which, I mean, it wasn't a big account, but it was 15 moves or something like that, and we lost it because we didn't cater to that one renter who happened to be the decision maker. So,
wow, that's a great point.
Yeah, well, it sucked, but I mean, it happened. You know what I mean?
Well, I think to your point, I think it's a duty of care, and I think it's making sure we're following through so that we're not only with new business, but with current business to make sure we're meeting and exceeding expectations.
Let's take a couple of questions here on this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on renters. So if you have any questions, comments, perspectives on renters, we're going to talk about that for a little bit here before we move on. So Annette says, duty of care is so important. So many do not understand that duty of care is based on who the family is, their needs, and who they are. Ooh, that's going to be a good one. We're going to get to that one, Annette, so stay tuned. Jack Jampel says, exactly, spot on. Renters also need a great experience. Our industry continues to just hold on to the homeowners as the primary customer. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think our business models today are geared towards the homeowner, right? Towards the large household goods shipments. You look at the two largest spends and the two largest commissionable items on a relocation, right? Let's be honest, are household goods and home sale, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what happens to that when renters rule the roost?
Well, and I mean, the paradigm has shifted. I mean, I think if you look back 15, 20 years ago, it was probably more like, 70% homeowners, 30% renters. And that paradigm has completely flipped until the pandemic. It's going to be interesting to see what it looks like when it's over.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. We got another comment here. When I was on the IBM account years ago, I used to frequently give a presentation called Renters Are People Too.
Love that.
That's great. That's fantastic. Let's see here. Oh gosh, your breast milk story is getting so much interesting. Oh gosh, our friend Aaron says, oh, this is too funny. There's some thoughts on this that potentially that was a classic George Costanza scam.
Possibly.
Yeah, people are loving that. That's fantastic. Let's see here. We got some people checking in for us as well while we let people give us some ideas on renters before we move on to talk about other types of policies and other types of families. Annette from Relo Moms checking in. Catherine Rodriguez. Yay, Amy. Molly Feldman from Jacksonville. Hosea Botley checking in from Aversal in Seattle. Jamie, for the weather in Mississippi today will be cloudy and cooler. Jamie's always got the weather there. Sandra Perry bringing the love from Alexandria, Virginia, while Amy brings the relo today.
Oh, I love it, Sandra.
Yep, fantastic. Let's see. Thomas Sturdivant checking in from Connecticut. Rory in Chicago. There's Derek Bird, excited to join and listen.
There's my teacher. He schooled me.
Did he? Derek, you got to give Amy some critique here. Feel free to leave it in the comments. We'll read it publicly. Feedback is a gift. I'm just kidding.
Easy. You can send it on Teams.
Feedback is a gift best done in public. Just like Christmas, you get a present, you got to open in front of everybody. Lena Reckdahl, love the Wetner story. You just gave me a story to describe the global mobility hilariousness. Yes, the absurdity of it all. This is great. Let's see here if anybody has given us some ideas here. Molly Feldman, expats with school-aged children renting large single-family homes at $3,000 plus have changed the definition of a renter. Oh, that's a great point. Do you see that? Have you seen the demand for single-family homes as a rental option go up? Renters are not just apartments.
Well, so interestingly enough, we're in the process and grateful during a pandemic to be signing new business. There happened to be a guy who sold his business and came to work for this new firm that we are partnering with. And he sold a $1.2 million home in Denver and is moving to the San Antonio, Texas area. And interestingly enough, he wanted to lease for the first part and then buy because he was obviously trying to close on his home. So it is interesting to me whether it's a short-term lease, getting to know the area or going ahead and doing a 6-month or a year. I think we're seeing that a lot in our industry, and it is changing because, the agent was like, hey, you can't rent an $800,000 home in this neighborhood. But they did make an exception because he did go ahead and make an offer to buy the home. So I think we're seeing a lot of that. And I think especially with school-age children, that's a fantastic point. Parents want to get their kids in the right school. And, with virtual learning, it's incredibly important to make sure they have the right space So I think those are all things as parents that I know I'm thinking about. If I have to teach algebra 2 and chemistry starting next week, I'm so screwed.
Yeah, really. Good luck with that one. But I mean, you're going to be teaching. A lot of people are going to be teaching it from the home. They're going to need that space. They're going to need multiple home offices, even though they're renters, even though they may not know what neighborhood they want to live in. I know when I moved to Michigan with my wife and kid, at the time, one out, now I have two. We wanted to rent a house and there were no options available, and I look at the wonderful corporate housing companies that we have, and a lot of them are apartment based, So I think there's a major opportunity for folks to come in and start to do more single family homes. And we talked to Christy Davis from Avenue West, who was on here before, and talked about it. It's just very capital intensive to get into that. But I think there's definitely an opportunity.
Well, and I'll speak to that. We do another account that's a military account, and they're only here typically for 2 to 3 year assignments, and they only rent single family homes, and they're all typically in that $3,000 to $5,000 a month range, and they have about 600 members here at any given time. So absolutely, I think as you talk about, I think there are a lot of opportunities, and a lot of relocation companies, frankly, would look at that and go, they're renters, we don't want to mess with it. It's been a great account for us. So I think as an industry, you made a great point earlier. I think we have to look at the business in a different light and figure out as an industry, what are the opportunities for us all collectively?
Yeah, definitely. We got some folks checking in here. And then what I want to do is I want folks to give us some questions and comments about policy types and family types, because that's what we're going to be talking about in the second half hour of our conversation with Amy here. And I'd like to really get into that because I think that's a really interesting topic that Amy has some fantastic insight on. Elena says, Lena Rectal agreed. You never know what kind of skills you're going to need. Global mobility.
That's true.
Let's see here. Jason Rollins said, are you finding that employees are requiring larger spaces and more bedrooms to accommodate home office space and remote learning spaces?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think not only in our space, but I have, and I'm sure as you guys do as well, friends and family that are, hey, we're selling this. My husband builds swimming pools, and, he has never been busier in his entire life. I think the two things that people are doing is quickly going, okay, we need a bigger house. We need a place for kids to do school. And then we need somewhere to throw them, which is the pool in the backyard when it's over, because we're done. So I think absolutely we are seeing a trend of what do our homes need to look like? What's interesting, I read online, remember how it used to be so big? Everybody wanted open concept. Well, nobody wants open concept.
Yeah, we all want our own space. That's right.
Yeah, and that's an interesting shift, I think, that you'll see even in design over the course of the next 12 to 18 months.
I love it. I could even see taking home offices and partitioning them further into 3 spaces where you have mom, dad, and child who are all doing their remote thing, in one space with maybe some soundproofing in between, right?
Oh, yeah.
Lots of soundproofing.
The spring in my house was very interesting when, as we're going to talk about, my oldest son is on the autism spectrum, and him getting on a Zoom call and trying to do high school, on an iPad with all of his friends. And God bless those teachers, because all the kids are talking over each other. And you can imagine with typical children, and then you take a special guy, and I applaud them so much for their efforts.
Annette says, what do you consider settling in concierge services, and how long do they last?
Great question, Annette. I think initially just making sure that initial transition is handled, that we're helping them set up, their utilities, cable, internet, anything else that they need for home setup. Do they need their TV hung on the wall? Do they need someone to sit and wait for their cable? What are the different concierge pieces? And I think as we continue with the launch we're going to do of this MoveIt app, we're certainly going to look at post move-in things that may also be inside of there. But fantastic question. And I think something we need to consider to explore. You made a great point, Ben, that, what does the rest of that supply chain look like that maybe we're not thinking of today?
Do you want to go ahead and plug that MoveIt app and tell us kind of what you're working on there before we go into the second half of the hour?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that really has been a process for us really over the course of the last 4 years that kind of started with that large renter account. It sort of forced us outside of our normal relo box. And it's really just taking all these incredible vendors, some within our industry and some not, inside this tool so that a renter can completely do their process through, and I apologize, my emails are popping up. I didn't close that. They can go through that entire process from finding an apartment to, finding a mover, but not, we've all done that thing where, you request insurance and then you get like 8 texts and 7 emails and 10 phone calls. This is not that. They can literally go in there, say what their needs are, and get a guaranteed price to move and find, either a full service or a container or just even labor if somebody wants to just hire some labor. So all those solutions are inside the tool. There is a full concierge component to where, someone can do all those things that we just discussed of getting settled in, as well as insurance, et cetera. So really from soup to nuts, someone's going to be able to do their complete move. The beautiful part is there's still the ability to chat and still have that human touch and component where you're not completely on your own. And it's a lot more vetted and focused than, just Google searching, and we all know, we've all talked about, I've heard many good shows that you've done where people, hold people's stuff hostage. And these are not those kinds of vendors because they know they will be kicked off the platform. So we're excited and we hope it's going to be a difference maker for the industry.
Well, I think the key is the vetted suppliers, right? And the fact they have accountability to you. That sounds great. Very interesting. Awesome. We're going to really quickly do a quick little ad from our sponsor, and then we're going to get into the second half of our conversation, which is going to talk about different types of families and maybe different types of policies. So one moment here. I encourage everybody to check out OnQ. Visit OnQ for the 2020 Mover Summer Games closing ceremony on Thursday evening with Adam Lowy and Greg Shepard of USA Home Listings, as well as special guest Judge Chris Mullen, the Hall of Famer and gold medalist. Save your spot today. Go ahead and check out the tiny URL at the bottom, tinyurl.com/watchonq to register for that. Fantastic. And let's go ahead and get back to Amy. All right. So cool. Thanks so much, Amy. So I want to talk about families, right? We all have families. That's why we come to work every day, right?
Absolutely.
Where are they? Where's my family? There they are.
They're beautiful, by the way.
Thank you so much. But I mean, that's why we do what we do, right? And I want to talk about families and kind of your inspiration around this and your story with families, and then how it's kind of informed your work in relocation and what you want to accomplish. So would you share that with us a little bit?
Absolutely. And Ben, I thank you so much. I think for me, that was the main reason I agreed to come on here and chat, is because it's been a really long journey. My son, Jacob, turns 18 in 2 weeks. And I swear, I feel like it was yesterday. I was sitting at the kindergarten, window crying. And the kind of the journey we've been on, when you have a typical kiddo, I don't think you necessarily appreciate what a special kiddo, what that looks like. Jacob didn't say mom until he was 4. And as long as I live, I'll never forget his teacher grabbing me and saying, "You've got to come in here." And I thought, oh God, did he get in trouble? What am I going to have to deal with now? And she's like, "Come here, watch this." And Jacob was 10 years old, and watching him read for the first time, I'm going to try not to get choked up while I'm telling you about it. It still brings tears to my eyes. And so when I think about that journey and how different and how delayed a lot of those things have been, I can't imagine, as we all do relocation every day, death, a divorce, and moving are the 3 most stressful things any of us will do in our life. And so when you have somebody like my son, Jacob, who is very visual and very scheduled, I mean, every day Jacob is, he wakes up on Monday and we have to go through the routine. First, I'm going to take a shower, and then I'm going to brush my teeth, and then I'm going to come unload the dishwasher. And then I won't bore you with the whole list of what Jacob does on a given day, but he will literally go through his list. So when you're moving somebody like that, it would be a lot to transition Jacob to do that. I can think about when he was little, and the transition from getting him to go to the dentist to getting braces was an incredible journey. So part of the reason I've never moved outside of Grapevine is because I know it would be really, really hard for Jacob to do that.
Yeah, sure.
I remember him being, 7 and literally having to straddle him in the dentist office and hold him down physically, like on top of him so the dentist could just look in his mouth. And then when I think, at 13, they were actually able to put braces on his teeth, it's really nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah.
So I kind of give you all that background just to say, whether it's a parent struggling with cancer, whether it's an elderly parent that lives with them, whether it's a child that, just maybe has dyslexia, and we may not look at that as a very big deal, but for that child to learn and read, that may be a huge topic for that family. And I think the biggest thing for me as I came to relocation, and the thing that I love about my company, is that they don't transact, they take care of people. And I think that's the thing I love, and I'm so proud to be a part of that organization, is they're always asking those questions. And I want us to do more and ask more. And as you were talking about policies, I want us to think about, does it make sense if somebody has that to go back to the company and say, hey, could we do a higher per diem if there's a special needs family because this kiddo may need to eat gluten-free, and I can tell you they're always going to charge you more for the bun. What are those things? Or is it going to take them longer to get to their point of destination because they have an elderly parent? And, should we give them more for their final move trip? And I know these may seem like simple things, but as a mom, if a company was trying to get me to move and someone actually considered those things in my family, that would be really important to me. So I think that's kind of part A. And then part B that I hope we can chat about before we're done is I really want to challenge our industry, and was my main focus on coming on today, is that as my son is getting older and going to finish high school in a year and thinking about next steps in life and work, there are a ton of kids that are his age and his skill set, and college isn't going to be the right solution for them. And so what does it look like for apprenticeships for them to become assistants and movers on your trucks? What does it look like for him to do data entry at an office on relocation files, or to be the person chatting maybe, on the back of that MoveIt app? And so kind of the two things I hope we can chat about as a group here collectively and come up with ideas is, how can we do better as an industry of serving our families and asking those questions? And then as an industry, how can we be an employment option and a training ground so that instead of sitting at home and a lot of these kids getting depressed, that we can help them put their skills to work and feel good and be a part of society. So
you brought up two great topics, and I want to dive into both of them. And that's the beauty of having a longer show, is we can actually take deep dives. Okay. So if you're watching right now and you heard what Amy's all about, I want you to leave it in the comments. I want you to leave your ideas around how do we get folks, who have disabilities or are otherwise abled, to how do we incorporate them into, maybe our employee base, right? And how do we give them jobs and find opportunities for them? But I want to go back also to the first thing you talk about policies, right? Because if you have a stack of files on your desk, the likelihood that you're going to have a family who has special needs is probably pretty high.
Yep.
Right. And I think you're right. I mean, so let's start there and let's talk about policies and benefits and offerings. What are some of the things, if somebody's out there right now and they're crafting a policy, or they're putting together benefits, or they're coming up with services, what are some of the things that we can do as an industry to cater to families like this?
Well, one of the things that struck me, I started doing some homework even within our own supply chain and just asking, hey, if I had a family with special needs and they needed an area orientation and kind of a destination services package, what does that look like? And can you tell me what you have? And I started finding that there's not really a lot out there that's specialized. And so I did come across Nadine Vogel with Springboard Global Enterprises, and she has started something called We Love. And I definitely want to give her a plug. I just joined it myself. And it's just a great space where people can come on, meet each other, whether they're relocating or not, if they have families with special needs. I think another piece, and I know as a friend of the show that popped on earlier, was Lynn Greenberg with Pivot. I think when people are moving, getting into community, something I see every day are moms and dads going on and saying, hey, I have a 16-year-old. I just moved to Austin. He doesn't have any friends. Can we connect? And so I think those are a couple of things that we need to consider, because the biggest thing is health and wellness. And these kids, a lot of them, like my son's on the spectrum, communication is challenging for him. And so it's hard to sort of make friends when you can't always converse like you and I can today. And so I think having these tools is one great step in terms of a policy and incorporating, those tools. If paying $11.99 a year for a We Love membership and for a CHRO that has a special needs kid, I can't even tell you what that would mean to me. And it's some little tiny thing that we can incorporate into a policy. So I think those are some simple things. I think some other things to consider might be, if someone is more visual, could you make a video? Could the destination company make a video of their school or a video of what their new room is going to look like so that kiddo can get that understanding, or even grab it off of the Zillow thing and put it together for them? And I know those seem like crazy over the top things, but those little things would be such an impact. I mean, if I hadn't showed Jacob the video of what it looked like to get braces on his teeth, he would have never done it.
Wow. So much to think about here. Okay, so you mentioned a couple things here, and I love calling out people who are doing great things. So
Me too.
first I want to hear about We Love. What is We Love for those who don't know?
Yeah, We Love is something Nadine started. She also has a special needs daughter who is now adult age and working for her business, and just an incredible lady. I got the privilege to connect with her a few weeks ago. And We Love is simply just a private space. It's $11.99 a year for anybody to go in and post. There are lots of great topics you can follow. I started following several. There's a specific autism community within the platform, but lots of other communities and topics about conferences and just things with special needs parents, that they need that sort of support. And I think it's going to be a great platform to just exchange ideas. And as she says, to just show love. So I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to figure out how we can also incorporate, Pivot for some of these families potentially.
Well, that was going to be my next question is how do you see an app like Pivot? And for those of you who don't know, explain what Pivot's about. Let's give Lynn a shout out here too.
Absolutely. Pivot is a great platform.
Explain how it's used, generally speaking, then how you could see it applied to this.
No, you bet. Pivot normally, Lynn came up with an incredible concept that, when you're moving to a new location, especially if you're taking an international assignment, if you're going to New York or London and you don't know anyone, trying to do meetups on Facebook and Instagram, you don't know what you're going to get. But really being able to plug into an expat community is a great way to do that sort of ahead of time and in advance. And if it's something that's part of a relocation, it's a great way to access. And it's something that I know we're certainly looking at as an organization to offer to our clients. And as I was thinking about, the notes that you had sent me, I was thinking about how Pivot could be so pivotal for special needs families, because if I were going to move, that's the first thing I would want to, beyond anything else, even packing my household goods, I would want to know that I had a school and Friends for Jacob. So I thought of Lynn and thought of her app, and I thought, what a great way for, a lot of these families I see posting to connect, to get together. So I think it may be another use case.
And then, so we got a couple questions here that are coming in here. Annette says, how do you find We Love?
It's welove.mn.co.
Okay, let me put that here. welove.mn.co.
Yep.
Cool. I put that right there here so everybody can see it. There it is. I hope I did that right because it's permanent. Okay, great. We get, what's so interesting too, as we have folks on who talk about children with disabilities, and I'm so appreciative of you doing this, and I'm just going to go through a couple comments and we can talk about them a little bit. But Derek said Amy is an amazing mother, balancing work and life, and is passionate about helping families. Thanks for your transparency. And I want to second that too, Amy. Thank you so much for being transparent, open, and honest and candid with us. It's inspiring, and I think it gives other people the courage and the opportunity and the platform to also do the same thing. We've had other people here who shared stories as well. Let's see here. Lisa Ross, my 11-year-old son has a severe stutter, and it's gotten worse as we go through these hurdles due to COVID-19, all the changes in his world. We need to make life easier for however we can. It's heartbreaking to watch how they are impacted. Yeah, for sure.
Lisa's my other awesome counterpart. And I'm, again, both Lisa and Derek are on my team, and I'm incredibly blessed to get to work with both of them. And and that's what makes it worth getting up every day,
Yeah, for sure. Sandra, I have a nephew about whom I have similar thoughts and prayers, thinking towards his future and being so grateful when kindness and understanding are offered. Schools and local services take on much more robust and specialized necessity with special needs family members, for sure. Yeah, this is great. Aaron saying thanks for sharing as well. Lynn says she loves the idea of a video to help familiarize them with the future environments. My nephew would totally benefit from that. Great advice, Amy. Yeah, this is great. This is wonderful.
Well, and just internships. I mean, maybe it's not something you want to pay, but maybe you want someone, helping stack boxes in the truck, and that gives them the ability to get out and do something part-time. So I would love those opportunities, and I want everybody. That's my challenge, and my whole purpose for being on here today is I love Ben Show and the fact that you're getting conversations started that I don't think would ever get started if it weren't for you. So number one, I want to say thank you. And number two, I know that as an industry, there are so many incredible people. I mean, one of which I met was Carrie Hatfield. And if you haven't listened to her podcast, Airs Relocation has an amazing podcast kind of telling her story. And she's been amazing in sharing kind of her journey. So I know there are a lot of us out there, and I think there's more we can do collectively.
Yeah, I love it. And let's get into that. Mike Quigley, shout out to you, Mike. I'm a father of an adult son on the spectrum, and this sounds great. So let's kind of transition and talk about, okay, how do we help folks? And I'd love to get into that and hear and kind of ideate in real time with the crowd here. We've got 30 something people watching on LinkedIn, half dozen people on Facebook right now. But I would love to ask the folks out there for just throw some ideas in the comments. You know, how could we make room and make opportunities to incorporate disabled folks into our organizations? Where could they fit in? You know, we had one show previously also regarding, I think they were called non-competitive jobs. I think that was the term. Are you familiar with that? Could you explain that to folks what that's about and that kind of categorization if you're familiar?
I'm not sure I'm as familiar enough to give a definition, but I think just in terms of, it's something where they may be paid a little bit less per hour. If I remember correctly from my walkthroughs with Jacob and some of these conversations with Texas Workforce, but it is a benefit to your company, and it may be a job that maybe you would normally pay someone $15 or $18 an hour, but somebody that's special might only get paid $8 or $9 an hour. So there is a benefit to you as a company. And then the benefit to that young adult is that they're getting experience they wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity for. So, again, there are lots of incredible opportunities for a business to sort of open up, even if it's one position, to say, hey, we're going to do this. And I love, like, even Home Depot, they will create greeter positions.
Greeters, yeah, sure.
And do different things like that. Yeah.
Totally. And what's beautiful about the greeter position too is a lot of these folks have just such wonderful hearts, and like when you come in and get the warm greeting, I got to be honest. So I'm going to be totally candid, right? So I don't know a lot about disabilities. I don't know a lot about this community. It's something that I aspire to know more about. But I think I need leadership in this in my own life, right? Because if I was to think, okay, as a leader in a company, how do I look and identify opportunities in my company that would be good for people with disabilities? That would be a challenge for me, right? And so I would struggle with that. So maybe I'd ask you a personal question from me to you is what types of roles or skills or abilities do these folks excel in?
Absolutely. And I will say a lot of these kids, I believe the most current number is still like 1 in 50 children in America are on the autism spectrum. And it is a vast spectrum. But a lot of these kids have photographic memories and are very, very good with coding and computers. And although they may not be very good at doing a dialogue like this, they're very good on a computer. So when we were talking earlier, if you have to have somebody monitor a chat functionality 24/7, that's the kind of kid that they're going to be all over it. Perhaps they need to be in, just doing data entry or checking your email box as your assistant because you're a busy guy. You've got a lot going on. There are a lot of things that they can do behind a computer that they might not be able to do out in front of the public for some of the kids. And then you've got other kids that may not be, that may not have the acuity to do some of those tasks, but physically may be in great shape. And if you say, hey, we're going to load this truck and I'm going to teach you how to do it. And it's funny, I sometimes underestimate my own son because as I shared, my husband owns his own pool business. And we had gone on a Saturday. I was like, oh man, you're stopping at this hotel. And he's like, yeah, my dude couldn't come clean the pool for me. I got to do it. And so I look around and my son had jumped out of the car and had gotten the stuff and had walked over and had started cleaning the pool and doing it. And I had no idea that my husband had taught him how to do all that. He goes, we know what we're doing. He's like, you stay in the truck. And, so I think they're teachable. And I think I underestimate my own kid and what his abilities are. And so I think it just depends on the child. I think the biggest thing, Ben, is that you're open to having the conversation.
Yeah. And I hope to inspire folks to be open. I think sometimes when we don't understand things, sometimes we get afraid. I think sometimes we get afraid of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. My only counsel to folks out there who might shy away from conversations like this is to lead with your heart. And as long as your heart's in the right place, people give you grace when you don't know, right? And so you just try to lead with your heart and do the right thing and try to learn, So yeah, I mean that's all I could say about that. I mean, I would love if you could just provide us maybe I don't know, just some thoughts maybe around have you seen folks in whether it be in your organization or in other organizations who have really excelled in roles that they've been put in? I mean, could you maybe tell us a story or something? But you told your son about the pool, but I mean, other stories that you might have seen. So give us some ideas, perhaps.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. I would say it kind of goes back to like the multifamily industry. We have jobs where you might just need somebody to pick up grounds and they're a porter. They've definitely, one of the initiatives we took on long before I left was really not associated with special needs, but was with veterans. And sort of one of the concepts that my husband and I have thought a lot about with this pool business is how could we take a veteran who's maybe physically disabled with a special needs person who's maybe mentally disabled, and how could we tag team them? And so I'm kind of thinking about that. What does that look like in the moving business? Maybe we get a veteran who fought for our freedom, and maybe we get a special needs kiddo and we put them together, and maybe there's some synergy there. I think there's a lot of opportunities. I think it's just a matter of openness and creativity and not being afraid that, it's funny. My new CEO, Anthony, and I were on a Teams call, and my son was having a really bad day. We were shifting his medication during the summer, and he was kind of making some loud, what we call stimming noises. Those of you who have kids will know what I mean. And he was kind of going back in front of my office, and my boss was like, "What in the world is that?" And I said, "It's my kid. I'm sorry." And I know we've all kind of been doing the pandemic thing, but I think it's just having a sense of they're going to be different. They're going to be quirky. Jacob might be, a little loud when he speaks back to you, even though he's not being disrespectful. And I think it's just being open to doing that. And I think for me, and I shared this on LinkedIn a bit ago, the biggest success story I have is that Jacob took a class at the University of North Texas this summer on learning job skills. And one of the things he had to do was a mock job interview. And when you have a hard time communicating, doing what you and I are doing is very challenging. So we wrote all of his answers on 3x5 cards, and I stood behind the computer and I'm like coaching him the whole time. But he got through the interview and he got an A. And I think my message is, if Jacob, who has a very difficult time being able to process, can do that, then how much more is the onus on each one of us to open up our minds and our hearts and to be creative to give those opportunities?
I love it. I love it. A lot of people are digging this idea too. Marcello says, great idea, Amy. Love Marcello's. Love that thumbs up, man. It's so positive. That's great. Let's see here. Says hello. We got Rory checking in. I'm a veteran. I would do it.
I haven't met Jacob yet, Rory. you might change your mind.
Yeah. Well, we got to keep an open mind, right? We got to try it out. Marcello mentioning, yes, it is getting hot in here. Yes, it is summertime. I took my jacket off. Don't get excited, Marcello. That's all you're getting, buddy. Okay. It says hashtag team live here. Let's see. Casey Gale says, this is so beautiful. Thank you. So enlightening. Coming from multifamily myself, I hadn't even thought of how this could translate to corporate housing. Yeah. Very cool. Let's see here. Lena from Sweden says, some of the most rewarding arrivals we have had have been families with challenges. To be there for them is just wonderful. Working together with the parents and solving something just like you described, small things matter. You should train our entire industry on procurement level on how important this is, and then all of us on how to do it well. Huh. That's interesting. You talked about, goals for the industry and everything. Do you think that Lena's got a point? Do you think that there's an opportunity there to take some leadership maybe in this area?
Well, I would definitely take that as a challenge. And I think anything that I can do to help families, I do a couple of things from a volunteer standpoint. And some of you may have seen on Facebook, there's some senior properties that I've kind of adopted here in the DFW area. And actually, Jacob regularly unloads and takes the food to the food pantry for them. And so, again, I think in smaller, big ways, what we can do as an industry, I love your Move for Hunger piece. And I think whatever we can do to raise awareness, to support each other, and again, I would be more than happy to put together just some basic training and questions to ask. And that way you kind of know from a mom's perspective, because one of the things that Dan asked me as I was kind of talking to him and prepping through this, he said, when you were younger, would you have even raised your hand and said anything that you have a special needs child? And it's interesting, when I was 25, 26 years old, when Jacob was little bitty in my late 20s, I wouldn't have said anything. And even as a young manager, I was sort of afraid to ask for anything special. I've got a few more gray hairs up here. And now that he's almost 18, I can say I'm not afraid to raise my hand. And I think that's one of the things, even as employees, back to HR, they don't want to ask for anything extra in terms of relo. And so I think as an industry, to get ahead of the curve and to even say to that HR person, hey, here's something we would recommend, as you talked about in terms of policy, I think that can be really tremendous.
So okay, couple of questions here. One, why wouldn't you have raised their hand in your 20s, but now you would? What was that evolution for you?
I think learning my value. I think as a young person, I was still very much trying to prove myself. And I think at this stage and age of the game, I know what I bring to the table. When I was younger, I was afraid, I think, and I didn't. And I think as Jacob was being diagnosed when he was 2 and 3 years old, I think in part I was in denial, and I think in part I was scared. I didn't want to say I have this kid with this label. And to be frank, when he was young, I was really pissed off. I was really sort of angry at what was going on. And it's been a journey that the good Lord has taken me on to show me that this has been a blessing. And I know without Jacob, I would have been just a rich, spoiled brat. And I thank God every day that he's turned me into a decent human being.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow, Amy, you're just really touching me right now. So then the second thing you brought up was, we need to be better about identifying and asking, because you're right. People aren't necessarily going to self-identify as having this need, right?
No.
So does that look like, putting a question in our scripting for our relocation consultants?
Yes.
To say, do you have a special needs child? Do you have an elderly, parent in the home? What's your situation? Like, really, not just like, hey, is everything okay? Like really digging in there with pointed questions. I mean, what types of questions do we need to be asking, and how can we actually put this into our tactical process?
What's the thing you're most concerned about in this move? As you think about this and what's keeping you up at night, what's going to be the biggest challenge for you? And I think if we'll ask open-ended questions like that, we'll get people to really open up. And again, it could be their kids in school. It could be, grandma's on oxygen and we're worried about how we're going to ship that and what does that look like. And, my husband's mom has AFib and, we thought she had COVID and we just got the results today. She is negative, thank God. But, and I think moving in a pandemic, I mean, you guys are doing it too. People are, unnerved, do we get on a plane with our little kids? Do we drive? And it's a whole other level on top of sort of all of these other things. And so I think as an industry, anything we can do to sort of get into that boat with them and make them feel like we're part of the solution, I think it's going to be so much more impactful.
Well, everybody is, coming and saying, I'm up for the challenge. The hearts are going out to you. Janet's, I'm on board to help in some way. Amy, I'm getting goosebumps. Thank you for such a personal story. People are just finding such inspiration in it. I would encourage folks who are watching this right now, who are feeling the goosebumps in the moment, to try to bottle that.
Because when I call you and say, I've got some kids who need jobs.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. There you go.
Remember those goosebumps you felt now, because I got a whole plethora of young adults that are going to need to work. And I do. I want to think about that and pray about, how we can take next steps. And again, would be more than happy to offer training and maybe put together, like you said, some more tactical, training modules that might be beneficial and maybe just stick them up on YouTube. I'll be kind of chewing on that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And let us know how we can utilize the Love and Relo platform to get the word out on that kind of stuff and help promote that as well. As Amy, as our time kind of comes to an end here, I want to thank you so much for being here. But I want to also ask you if there was a kind of a final thought or something that you wanted to leave us with. I would love to hear your thoughts for us.
I don't want this to sound cheesy, and I know it may just sound like the golden rule in a way, but I don't think it's ever more true to love your neighbor as yourself, and to know that your neighbor may look a little different than you, may act a little different than you, and may not be exactly like you. But I don't think there's ever a time that's more important, personally, professionally, to just love your neighbor. And I know that may sound so Mr. Rogers, but I just want to compel everybody to do their part and to just pray every day for this country. Yeah.
Love your neighbor, because you're somebody's neighbor too, right?
Absolutely.
And I love it. That's fantastic, Amy. That's a great place to leave it. Thank you so much to everybody who has chimed in the comments. So many people logged in to watch this. I can't thank you enough for being a part of the conversation, getting involved. Drop that heart and that like for Amy there and Jacob. in the comments there. And Amy, I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us. It truly is inspiring.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate the platform.
Awesome. Hey, thanks everybody. Hey, tomorrow we're going to be here with Chuck White, President of International Association of Movers. We got some big announcements for you, so please tune in tomorrow, 4 o'clock